What's up, guys? Welcome back. It's Jesse. I guess today we're gonna be reacting to MJV animations again. This is three true horrifying camping. What? Three true horrifying camping horror stories animated. I guess sit back and relax. Let's get to it.
This happened 2 years ago, and since the anniversary just passed, I thought I should finally share the story. My fiance and I were on the second night of our 2-night camping trip at a popular campground, about a half hour from where we live. For reference, my fiance is a person of color, and we live in a predominantly white, conservative, and racist area. This is important later. On our first night, we kept hearing noises in the woods around us. The campsite right beside ours to the right was occupied, but the one to the left was not. The campsites are about 150 yards apart, and we had camped here in the same exact plot the year before. Needless to say, we were familiar with the area and the various kinds of animals that live in the woods. The first night, we heard shuffling around our tent. It was obviously something large moving around. We brushed it off and assumed it was just a deer. Now back to the main event.
That was a pretty nice.
On August 11th, we spent the day at the battlefields, a town over with my family. They had all been invited to join us for the day by my fiance as a surprise for me while he proposed to me. We stayed with my family into the evening, about 6 p.m., before heading back to our campsite. When we got back, things were really odd. Someone had obviously been in our tent. Our blankets were thrown around, clothes were on the floor, and my backpack had been rearranged, and I was missing underwear. But hey, we were stupid 19-year-olds and decided that since whoever had busted in had left and hadn't taken anything important, it was fine and that they probably wouldn't come back. So we set up a campfire and sat out until it was dark, roasting hot dogs and s'mores, smoking cigarettes, and celebrating our engagement. Around 9:30 p.m., we put our fire out and decided to go into our tent for the night to celebrate a little bit more. Nothing too loud or obnoxious. Immediately after we finished, we started to hear the noises outside of our tent again, but this time we focused in. We heard clear footsteps and at one point a man whispering. We looked at each other and our eyes got wide. Somebody was definitely walking around outside our tent. We were still and completely silent, just listening to the footsteps. And we heard whispering again. Shit, make that 2 men walking around our tent. As if we had the ability to read minds, my fiance said, "I have to go to the bathroom," and I agreed. The bathroom was up the hill from our site. Most people who were in lower sites like ours drove their cars up to the bathroom. Now here's the part I still get chills thinking about. We got up and we were getting dressed. My fiance had just turned on the light in our tent and put his binder on when a man spoke directly to us from right outside the tent. "What are you doing?" I can't even describe how malicious and menacing this voice sounded. It was clearly directed at us, and he said it with a snicker. He was watching us through the walls of the tent. Again, for this part, we were stupid 19-year-olds, so we decided to just run for it to the car. My fiance grabbed his pocket knife and his keys and stepped out of the tent. He pulled me with him, and we ran like hell to the car. I heard the footsteps running behind us, and then turning and running up to another campsite. In the bathroom, we talked over our options. We talked about sleeping in the car or driving into town. Then we had another idea. We drove back down to our campsite and began packing everything in the car. At this point, it was around midnight. We moved faster than I think either of us thought possible, wrapping up the tent with our belongings still in it and grabbing our folding chairs. We were all packed in like 5 minutes and hopped back in the car to leave. I jumped out at the end of the drive and grabbed our nameplate, which had my full name on it, by the way, off of the post. As we pulled out of the campsite, I saw our assailants for the first time. Stalking through the woods onto our campsite were 2 tall white men. I realized that these were the same men who had been driving past our campsite the whole time we were there, just glaring at us and muttering to each other. One was wearing camo hunting gear, and the other was wearing a Confederate flag tank top. Both were carrying large hunting knives, unsheathed and at the ready. They
That's
turned when they
crazy.
saw our car driving away, and one started to chase us until the other stopped him. I made eye contact with the man in camo, and he smiled the most terrifyingly evil smile at me and shook his head slowly. We drove the long way home,
Bruh,
taking
she
all
moved out
the
of
weirdest,
town.
hardest to follow roads, and called my dad so he would know we were coming. When we got home, we told my dad everything, and he shrugged it off as us just being paranoid.
What the
So
fuck?
I never told anyone else besides all of you now. I'm convinced to this day that this was going to be a racially motivated attack. The
Yes, it
campground was
was.
not heavily
Hello.
populated, and my
Yeah.
fiance was the only non-white person at any of the campsites. It was no accident that the two men who had been shadowing us since our
Anyway,
arrival
had the
and
Confederate
wore
flag,
Confederate flags, and one on their truck decided to
That's,
target the interracial couple. I still
Friggin',
get cold
this
chills when I think about how
semi-
close we were to being killed
Truck.
or seriously hurt that night.
Crazy.
Just how lucky we were that our reckless plan to just make a run for it worked. So, to those men who stalked our campsite with knives, let's not meet.
And this
So when I was
story too, guys.
13, my parents sent me to an all-girls fitness camp to work on becoming the best version of me. Well, let's be honest here, it was a fat camp, and it was as horrible as you can imagine.
Damn.
Bad food, all-day
Okay.
exercise, and god-awful counselors. The camp took place on a college campus where they had us sleeping in dorms of 2 girls per room. But I had high hopes that it wouldn't be a complete waste of a summer, as my roommate seemed like a great girl. Let's call her Mary. We had similar interests
Mary?
and the same style. It seemed like a perfect match. We would chat late into the night, planning our escape from the camp, bemoaning having to give up our cell phones, though secretly I had managed to sneak mine in, and talking about our families and how much they sucked for sending us here. To be honest, I was surprised that she was even at this camp. She was actually pretty fit, and her parents had signed her up for the whole summer, versus mine only sending me
Why?
for 2 weeks. Only 2 days into being at this place,
But
I was
2
pulled
weeks,
aside by another girl who I had become close friends with. She warned me that Mary had a lot of issues, and the reason why she had been sleeping alone for X amount of time was because no one else wanted to room with her. Well, I brushed it off, thinking it was just rumors and the other girls being mean. That day at lunch, Mary seemed rather mad at me, and for the life of me, I couldn't figure out why.
She's hella pissed. Damn.
So when I got a chance,
Bro,
I asked her
did
what
you
was
do?
up. She ranted at me about how everyone was so mean, and was I going to leave too? She went on to explain how this one girl she was rooming with switched rooms because she made friends with this popular girl, and that she made up lies to be popular. And silly me, I believed her. We continued hanging out, and only
That's
now do I
mad.
realize how she was keeping me from hanging out with everyone else. Near the end of my first week, the camp took us on a long walk over to the local pool. It was a big deal as it was super hot and only a once-a-week activity.
But that's how
Mary
right
and I
now.
were super excited to go. When we got there, we quickly claimed some chairs and left our stuff there. As Mary had been at the camp for several months, she didn't have to pass some stupid can you swim test that I assume is mandatory in most camp settings.
Bro,
So
wait,
we were
what
separated
is
for
this?
about 20 minutes. After I passed with flying colors, thank you to the swim team, I jumped into the pool and just started floating around. I heard her calling my name and saw her waving me over to the deep end of the pool. I swam over and asked her what was up, and she said she wanted to show me something.
But she didn't
Next thing
drown
I
you.
know, her hands are around my neck and she is shoving me underwater.
What the
Now,
fuck?
I am a good swimmer and I am very capable of holding my breath for quite a long time, but never in my life had anything like this happen to me.
You
And as
gotta
I
fight back.
panicked and opened my mouth to scream.
Fuck.
Luckily, before my mind had even processed what was happening, I had kicked up my legs and shoved her back and made a desperate escape. Somehow I managed to swim away and pull myself out of the pool.
You got caught a
As I
police
caught my
with
breath
the
and
phone
began
that
to
you
process what
had.
had just happened, I looked back at her. She was just staring at me, not having moved. I quickly grabbed my stuff and ran into the bathroom and called my mom.
Was it? Cause the
I
counselor.
was in tears as I explained what happened, and it was very obvious she didn't believe me. I stayed in that bathroom until we left to go back to the camp.
But you got to tell a counselor
I
what
didn't leave the
happened.
counselor's side the entire walk back. When we arrived back at the camp, I was pulled aside by one of the women in charge. She very rudely demanded I give her my cell phone. I, of course, denied having one and asked why she thought I did. She told me that my parents had called about some assault that had happened to me, and they told them I had called. Quickly, I
Dang.
excused it, saying I had borrowed a phone from a
parents,
lady
man.
at the pool. Thankfully, they bought it. They told me that I would be moved to a new room the next day, and that I had to spend the night with Mary one last time. Furiously,
dude,
I
kill
begged them to
her.
please let
You
me sleep
leave
on the
the
floor
room.
of another girl's room, but they insisted I was being melodramatic. As soon as I was left alone again, I raced to the
The
closest
outcome
bathroom and
is-
called my mom. That's when I learned the truth about Mary. I wasn't her second roommate, not her third, fourth, or fifth. I was the
Seventh?
sixth girl to stay in a room with her.
Oh, 6.
3 of her roommates had left camp early, and the other 2 had switched rooms at the
Damn.
first opportunity. All 5 other girls had made allegations of violence from Mary against them, but the camp refused to do anything and insisted she was just being a troubled girl who wanted to make new friends.
But El Cap.
Or, as they told my parents, well, she has had some issues in the past. That night, I didn't sleep at all, and neither did Mary. She sat up in bed staring at me all day and night. I could feel
Oh,
her
I was
watching
scared
me,
as
and
fuck.
I was just terrified. I had my phone clutched in my hand with 911 dialed and ready to call at any moment. I practically cried when
sure?
the sun came up. That day, I was moved to a new room in a different building and somehow managed to break my foot in the process. So my parents drove up and
fuck?
took me home with a cast on my foot to commemorate my time there. To this day, I have had issues from what this girl did to me, and I have never been able to live with
Wow,
roommates
I
or make
would
friends
too,
as
what the
easily. So, Mary, wherever you are out there, let's never meet again.
Let's never meet again. I did the last story, guys.
I have been camping, solo backpacking, and hunting my whole life in Oregon, and I have felt comfortable in the woods and have a deep respect for nature. A few years ago, my wife, daughter, and 2 German Shepherds went camping north of Mount Jefferson, Oregon. I have included the coordinates of our campsite, which we found to be the perfect setup for us and our 2 dogs, who need the privacy
a
since they are intimidating to
big-headed
other
dog,
dog
man.
owners and can be loud when spooked. It was not an established campsite, just a nice horseshoe off a USFS road that had flat ground,
nice.
full trees, and a fire pit. The first night my daughter wanted to sleep by herself in a 2-man tent right next to ours. It was maybe 2 feet away from me and my wife's tent. We made
What
the
do you
male
think?
German Shepherd sleep. Guts is his name, with her in the tent. That whole first night, neither my wife nor I could sleep. We both heard footsteps, and they were heavy. Not like typical forest critters scampering around at night.
Human?
I was well armed because I was paranoid from reading recently, before departing, about a dad in California who was shot and killed in a tent next to his 2 infant daughters.
But
Needless to
that's
say,
fucked.
both my wife and I had 2 pistols, and I had my rifle with me.
But that's not
Dogs
a
are
rifle,
great at
that's
detection,
fucking- I don't know
and
what
that is why I
but
felt my
that's
daughter
not
could sleep
a-
alone,
a rifle.
because Guts is completely fearless, and nothing would lay a hand on her without a battle to the death. All in all,
Damn.
nothing but bad
Road
vibes
dogs.
and loud footsteps occurred that night, which I ultimately decided were deer or maybe some elk. Day 2, morning. We go for a walk down the road, and maybe 300 feet away, I see an abandoned road where a rusted gatepost, the gate was missing, was covered in vegetation. Something of a blue color caught my eye, and Guts immediately took off running down this abandoned road. My heart
Bruh,
began to race
police.
because I thought it was another family camping like us, and he was going to get himself shot, or scare some innocent
What?
people to death. So I chased after him as fast as I could, and the rest
Why
followed.
he's running quick as fuck? What's damn?
He stops 20 feet into the road, and I yell his name, but I have covered just enough distance to see that there is nobody there. Something is off about the site. I yell out, "Hello? Is anyone out there? Sorry about the dog." I got no response. My curiosity gets the best of me, and I have to see what the site conditions are. As I get
Bro, you
closer,
should go
I know
back.
something is wrong. It had all the necessities for a campsite, including a cooler, propane burner, tent, blankets, and folding table.
But that's old.
Every single item had been completely destroyed, smashed, and torn from what appeared to be claw marks. We all walked around in circles,
Bear?
puzzled why anyone would leave all their camping gear behind, including an expensive
check my
REI
bear.
tent. I figured someone left in a hurry and animals got to the rest as the only logical explanation. Still, the propane tank and cooler were flattened by something, and it certainly wasn't snowpack with tree coverage in that spot. As the afternoon rolls in, I and my daughter are playing bocce ball at the campsite, and my wife goes walking maybe 70 feet north to do her business. I do not have a direct line of sight on her. All of a sudden, I see Guts make a mad dash straight towards her. Normally, he would always be with me unless he was called over, and she didn't call for him. His speed and focus caught my attention, and
Why
I knew
did you look
something
at him?
weird was happening. So I ran over there, and my wife started jogging at me, and I immediately drew my pistol. Guts has completely continued running into the forest another 100 feet. Before I call him and he stops, My other dog, Leah, who never misses the opportunity to be the pack leader, is not taking point. I've had her now for 7 years, and this was the first time in her life she refused to leave my daughter's side. She was full-haired and attached to us at the hip. Again, anytime we hike or play, Leah is up front bossing everything in her path and pauses to look to see where we are and continues. I asked my wife what happened, and she said, I was trying to pee, and all of a sudden, I felt all my hairs raise. I knew somebody was watching me. And then I saw Guts running towards me, and I just got up to move towards you. We spent 10 minutes looking for signs of anything, and saw no trails. Broken branches, or anything to point to what and where something
I
went.
decided to go home, man.
We decided we were spending one more night, since it's too late to pack up and drive, but we will all be in the big tent together. Before we go to bed, I put a rope with a makeshift coin alarm around the perimeter of our campsite. I used a mint can and some coins and keys from our truck and zip-tied it, so anything hitting the rope gave a little jingle. Very unsophisticated, but it put my wife at ease. As I go to tie my last corner off in a tree near our tent, our third mystery item unveils itself. It looks like someone has done the same exact thing I've done with a rope that was so old and brown I didn't see it at first. It was broken and only a few pieces remained, but sure enough, it was tied at roughly the same height, 8 to 10 inches off the ground, and even had a few rusted washers on it. I immediately felt someone had stayed here before and put the same kind of makeshift warning system on the same tree that I am right now, 10 to 15 years ago, based on the condition of the rope. Perhaps my paranoia has now reached a new height, but I had to make sure the girls felt safe. And at the time, the only thing I could think of was when the evening came around, I made them sit in the truck and I fired a clip of my .45 into the dirt as a signal to whatever was out there that we were armed. I reassured the girls that anybody listening to that now knows we have 2 wolves and are armed, and we are too risky of a target, so we can sleep safely. That night, we heard no footsteps, and the dogs never perked up and barked. We left early the next morning. Fast forward to today, and I watched the Amazon Missing 411 Hunted documentary, and I noticed the cluster smack dab close to where we camped that weekend. And a flood of dread rushes me as I think of that mysterious abandoned campsite with the ripped tent and smashed cooler and cooktop. We have been camping since then and have enjoyed the beauty of the Northwest, but there was something there at that place that possibly took or harmed someone else less than 300 feet away from where we camped. And we all thank our lucky stars. Guts was doing his thing so well that afternoon.
Guys, do W dogs, guys, do W stories. But damn, guys, always be careful, always be armed when you go out camping, because you never know. I think that'll do it for today's video, guys. Get to 400 subscribers, guys, and we'll go to Gravity Hill or St. Drew. I can't remember the name of that one place, but the place with the thing abandoned mental hospital. But guys, make sure you guys like, share, comment, and subscribe. I think that'll do. Oh, should I do it right? Alright. I'll see you guys next time. Peace out, guys.